David Letterman's coffee cup slipped from his hand and crashed to the floor. Paul Shaffer's fingers froze on the piano key. The band stopped playing. 200 people in Studio 6A stopped breathing. Sitting across from Dave was Lucille Ball, the queen of comedy, the woman who invented television sitcom, the face that had been in American living rooms for 30 years. And right now, on this April night in 1984, the most famous redhead in the world was staring at Dave with eyes full of tears. And what she was about to say would destroy the carefully crafted legend of "I Love Lucy" forever. This moment would never be broadcast again. April 12th. 1984. Studio 6A at Rockefeller Center, New York City. Late Night with David Letterman was in its third season and finally hitting its stride. The wood-paneled walls glowed under warm tungsten light. The retro desk sat center stage. Paul Shaffer's keyboard gleamed. The Manhattan skyline sparkled through tall windows. David Letterman, 37 years old, sat behind his desk with that familiar gap-toothed grin, his curly brown hair slightly disheveled, his tie loosened just enough. Tonight, he was nervous. More nervous than he'd been since his first episode. Tonight's guest was television royal Lucille Ball. The booking had taken 9 months. Lucy didn't do talk shows anymore. At 72, she'd already conquered everything there was to conquer. She created "I Love Lucy" in 1951 and changed television forever. First woman to run a major production company. First pregnant woman shown on television. First interracial couple on prime. She'd won 4 Emmys, been nominated for 13. She was the most famous woman in America, maybe the most famous woman in the world. But she was also private guarded. She'd been burned by interviews before, by questions about Desi, about the divorce, about the communist accusations in the 1950s. Her people made it clear. Keep it light. Keep it about comedy. Don't dig into her personal life. The monologue went perfect. Dave killed with jokes about Reagan and the Olympics. The audience loved. Paul's band was tight. Everything clicked. Then came the moment. "Ladies and gentlemen," Dave said, his Midwestern earnestness bleeding through. "My next guest, without exaggeration, the most important woman in the history of television. She created the sitcom format we all take for granted. She made America laugh for 3 decades. She's Lucy Ricardo, Lucy Carmichael, and most importantly, she's Lucille Ball." The audience exploded. Standing ovation before she even appeared. This was meeting the queen. Paul's band launched into the "I Love Lucy" theme. The curtain pulled back, and Lucille Ball walked out. She moved with careful elegance, each step deliberate. She wore a navy blue dress, simple but expensive. Her hair was still that famous red, though everyone knew it came from a bottle. Her face showed every one of her 72 years, the line, the softness, the weight of decades in the spotlight. But those eyes, those incredible blue eyes, still sparkled with intelligence and something else, something sad. Dave stood, took her hand, kissed it gently. Lucy smiled, that $1 million smile, and waved to the audience. The applause went on for nearly a minute. She sat in the guest chair, crossed her leg, folded her hands in her lap. Perfect pause, perfect control. A woman who'd spent 50 years being watched. "Miss Ball, thank you so much for being here," Dave said. "Please call me Lucy. Everyone does." Her voice was deeper than people expect. Husky, worn by cigarettes and decades of not the squeaky Lucy Ricardo voice, the real voice. They talked about the early days, about vaudeville, about her first movie contract, about meeting Desi Arnaz and falling in love. Lucy told funny stories, perfectly timed, hitting every beat like the professional she was. The audience ate it up. Then Dave asked about "I Love Lucy." "Lucy, when you and Desi created that show, you basically invented the sitcom format. 3 cameras, live audience, filming in Hollywood instead of New York. Why did you fight so hard for that?" Lucy's smile flicked just for a sec, but Dave saw it. "Because I wanted to be home," she said simply. "CBS wanted us in New York. I wanted to be in California, near my mother, near stability. So we invented a way to do it. And it worked." The show was the #1 program in America. For 4 of its 6 seasons, 60 million people watched the episode where little Ricky was. "Yes," Lucy said quietly. 60 million people. Something in her tone made Dave pause. The audience sensed it too. The energy shifted. "Can I ask you something honestly?" Dave said, leaning forward. "When you watch those old episodes now, what do you see?" Lucy really looked at, like she was deciding. "You want the truth, David?" "Always." She took a breath. Her hand, perfectly still until now, began to tremble slightly. "I see a woman pretending to be happy." The studio went quiet. Not the good kind of quiet. The uncomfortable kind. What Lucille Ball said next would shatter the greatest love story in television history. "Everyone thinks I Love Lucy was about a happy marriage," Lucy continued, her voice steady but soft. "Lucy and Ricky Ricardo, the perfect couple, fighting and making up, always in love, always together." She paused. "But Lucy and Ricky weren't real. Lucille and Des, and we were destroying each other." Dave's face went pale. This wasn't in the pre-interview. This was way off script. "By the 2nd season," Lucy said, "Desi was drinking a bottle of scotch a day. By the 3rd season, he was having an affair. By By the 4th season, I knew about the affairs, and I was having my own. The audience was frozen. Paul Schaefer slowly lifted his hands off the keyboard. Every week, we'd go on that stage and perform this fantasy of a happy marriage, and 60 million people believed. 60 million people watched us and thought, that's what love looks like. Her voice cracked. But when the cameras turned off, we'd go to separate dressing rooms, separate cars, eventually separate houses. We were playing characters who loved each other while we were learning to hate each other in real life. A woman in the front row started crying. The episode where little Ricky was born, Lucy continued, the one 60 million people watched. I had just found out Desi had gotten another woman pregnant, a dancer from the show, while I was pregnant with our real son. Dave's hands gripped the edge of his desk. This was television dynamite. This was career-ending honest, and he didn't know whether to stop her or let her continue. What did you do? Dave asked quietly. I did the show, Lucy said. I went on camera, 8 months pregnant, and I made America laugh, because that's what professionals do. And then I went home and cried for 3 days. She wiped her eyes carefully, preserving her makeup out of sheer habit. Do you know what the hardest part was, David? Not the affair, not the drink, not even the divorce. The hardest part was that everyone blamed me when we broke up. How could Lucy leave Rick? They were so perfect together. I got hate mail, death threats, people telling me I'd ruined their childhood by getting divorced. Her hands were shaking visibly now, but they didn't know. They didn't know about the bruises I covered with makeup. They didn't know about the nights I slept in little Desi's room because I was afraid. They didn't know about the woman Desi got pregnant, or the other one after that, or the ones I never found out about. The studio was dead silent except for the sound of people crying. Dave did something then that shocked everyone. He stood up from behind his desk, walked around it, and sat down on the floor beside Lucy's chair, just like he'd done with Olive, just like he'd done with Kat. When it mattered, Dave went to them. Lucy, he said softly, why are you telling us this now? After all these years? She looked down at this young man sitting at her feet, and something in her face softened. Because I'm tired, Dave. I'm 72 years old. Desi died last, and I never got to tell him how angry I am, how hurt I still am, how much I loved him and hated him, and can't stop thinking about it. She started crying, really crying, not performed emotion, real grief. Everyone wants me to say nice things about him. Oh, Desi and I had a wonderful marriage. We just grew apart, but we didn't grow apart. He broke my heart over and over again, and I stayed because of the show, because of the money, because 60 million people needed Lucy and Ricky to stay together. But then Lucy revealed something even darker. Can I tell you something I've never told anyone? Lucy asked, looking directly at the camera now. Dave nodded, not trusting his voice. The famous grape stomping episode, the one everyone remembered, the one in Italy where I'm stomping grape and fighting with that Italian woman. Everyone knew that episode. It was one of the most iconic moments in television history. We filmed that 3 days after I had a miscarriage, Lucy said. My third miscarriage. Desi was in Vegas with another woman. Didn't even know I had lost the baby. And the producers told me we had to shoot. We were behind schedule. The sponsor was angry. So I went to Italy and I stomped grape and I made people laugh. She paused, her voice breaking completely now. And when people tell me it's their favorite episode, I smile and say thank, but inside, I'm back in that hospital room, alone, wondering why I'm sacrificing everything for a show. Paul Schaefer was openly crying at his keyboard. The audience was devastated. This wasn't entertainment. This was a woman's whole life laid bare. After we divorced, Lucy continued, I kept work. I did the Lucy show, and here's Lucy. 20 more years of being funny, being Lucy, making people happy. And you know what? I was good at it. I was damn good at it, but I was also dying inside. She looked at Dave with those incredible blue eyes, still sharp, still seeing everything. I've spent 50 years making America laugh, and I don't regret it, but I do resent it, because everyone thinks they know me. They think they know Lucy. But Lucy Ricardo was a character. She wasn't real. I was real, and nobody ever asked what I need, what I want, if I was okay. Dave reached up and took her hand. She held onto him like a drowning woman holding a life preserver. What did you need, Lucy? He asked gently. I needed someone to ask if I was okay, she whispered. Just one. In 50 years. I needed someone to see past the smile and the jokes and ask if I was okay. Dave squeezed her hand. Are you okay now? Lucy was quiet for a long time. Then, no, but I'm on. Final. And maybe that's a start. Paul began to play. Softly, the I Love Lucy theme, but slowed down. Played like a lullaby, like a funeral dirge, like a prayer for broken things. The audience didn't know whether to applaud or stay silent. Most of them just sat there, tears streaming down their face, witnessing something sacred and terrible. And then Lucille Ball did something that would become legend. Lucy stood up slowly. Dave stood with, still holding her hand. Can I do something? She asked. Anything, Dave said. Lucy walked to the center center of the stage. She looked out at the audience, at the camera, at America watching. "I want to do Lucy one more time," she said, "but the real Lucy, not the character." She stood there, this 72-year-old woman, this legend, this icon, and she started to perform. But it wasn't a bit. It wasn't comedy. It was truth performed as art. She talked directly to the camera, her voice strong now. "My name is Lucille Desiree Ball. I was born poor in Jamestown, New York. My father died when I was 3. I was a showgirl, a B-movie act, a woman nobody thought would amount to any. And then I created a television show that changed the world." She paused. "But I also lived a lie. I pretended to be happy when I was miserable. I covered bruises with makeup. I worked 3 days after losing baby. I smiled through betrayal and heartbreak and loneliness that almost killed." Her voice grew strong. "And I'm done lying. I'm done being what everyone needs me to be. I'm done sacrificing myself on the altar of Lucy Ricardo, America's favorite housewife, America's favorite clown." She looked directly into the camera. "To every woman out there who's pretending to be okay when you're not, stop. To every woman staying in a bad marriage because people expect, leave. To every woman sacrificing herself for everyone else's happiness, your happiness matters too." The audience erupted, not in applause, but in something deep: recognition, solidarity, the sound of women seeing themselves in Lucy's pain. "I spent 50 years making you laugh," Lucy said, tears streaming down her face, "and I don't regret a second of it, but I won't spend whatever time I have left lying about the cause." She walked back to Dave, and they embraced, a real embrace, a young comedian and an old legend, both understanding the weight of performance, of expectation, of wearing a mask for so long you forget what your real face looks like. When they separated, Dave looked at the camera. "Ladies and gentlemen, Lucille Ball, the most honest woman in America." The applause was deafening. It lasted 5 full minutes. People stood, people cried, people bore witness to something they'd never forget. Lucy waved, smiled that beautiful smile, and walked off stage. Dave watched her go, then sat behind his desk and just looked at the camera. "I don't know what to say after that," he said quietly. "I don't think anything I say could possibly be enough." Paul played them out gently. The camera held on Dave's face as the credits rolled. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't performing. He was just there, present, letting the weight of what had happened sink in. And what happened after that night would change Lucy's final years forever. NBC executives were furious. They called it too dark, too depressing, too real. They never re-aired the episode. They tried to bury it, but women across America had seen it, and they didn't forget. Lucille Ball went home that night and called her children. She told them everything about Des, about the miscarriage, about the decades of pain hidden behind laughter. They cried together, and then they started healing together. Letters poured in. Thousands of women thanking Lucy for her honesty. Women sharing their own stories of bad marriage, lost children, sacrificed dreams. Women saying, "Me too, me too, me too." Lucy read every letter, every single, and she responded to as many as she could. In her final 5 years, Lucy became an advocate for women leaving abusive relationships. She gave money to domestic violence shelters. She spoke at women's groups. She used her fame for something other than comedy, and she stopped pretending. When people asked about Desi, she told the truth. "He was talented and charming, and he broke my heart." No more glossy magazine line. No more protecting the legend of Lucy and Rick. Dave Letterman never forgot that night. Years later, in an interview, he was asked about his most important guest. "Lucille Ball," he said without hesitation. April 12, 1984. "What made it so important? Because she stopped performing. For the first time in 50 years, Lucy Ricardo disappeared and Lucille Ball showed up. And she taught me that honesty is more powerful than any joke, that truth is more valuable than any laugh." He paused. "After that night, I tried to be more real on the show, more honest, less polished, because Lucy showed me that's what people actually need, not more perform, more truth." But here's what almost nobody knows. Here's the rest of the story. 2 days after that interview, Lucy sent Dave a pack. Inside was a black and white photograph from I Love Lucy. Lucy and Des in costume, smiling at the camera. On the back, Lucy had written, "David, this is what America saw, but you saw the truth. Thank you for letting me finally tell it. Love, Lucy." Dave had that photo frame. It hung in his office until he retired. When Lucy died in 1989, Dave was asked to speak at a memorial service. He stood at the podium and told the whole story. The interview, the confession, the truth about Lucy and Des. "Lucille Ball spent 50 years being the funniest woman in America," Dave said. "But that night in 1984, she was the bravest because she stopped hiding. She stopped pretending. She stopped being Lucy and started being herself." He looked out at the crowd, family, friends, celebrities, fans. "We loved Lucy Ricardo, but we should have loved Lucille Ball more. We should have asked if she was okay. We should have seen the pain behind the comedy. We should have let her be human." His voice broke. "I got to sit with her on the worst night of her professional life and the best night of her actual life. The night she stopped lying, and I'll be grateful for that until the day I died. The memorial service ended with a video montage of Lucille's greatest moment. The chocolate fact, the grape stomp, the Vitamita Vegamin commercial, all the iconic scenes that made her famous. But Dave noticed in every clip, if you looked closely at Lucille's eyes, you could see it. The sadness, the exhaustion, the cost of being comedy's queen. And he wondered how many people had seen it over the years and said nothing. How many people noticed Lucy was hurting and decided the laughter was more important than the woman creating. The legacy of that night isn't about television history or Emmy moment. It's about the cost of performance, the weight of expectation, the price women pay for making others comfortable. Lucille Ball taught Dave Letterman that comedy is serious business, that laughter has a price, that the funniest people are often the saddest, and we should pay attention to that. She taught America that we don't own our celebrity, that they're human beings with pain and fear and needs just like everyone else. And she taught women that it's okay to stop pretending, that you can be loved and still be unhappy, that you can have success and still feel like a failure, that it's okay to tell the truth, even when the truth destroys the image everyone wants you to maintain. In her final interview before she died, Lucy was asked if she regretted that night on Letterman. "Regret it?" she said, her voice hoarse but strong. "It was the most important thing I ever did. More important than any episode of I Love Lucy. More important than any award or honor or achieve." "Why?" the interviewer asked. "Because for 50 years, I was Lucy Ricardo. And that night, I finally got to be Lucille Ball. And she was worth knowing too." That's the story NBC tried to bury. That's the moment that changed late-night television. That's the night Lucille Ball stopped being America's clown and started being America's truth-teller. And somewhere in a desk drawer in Montana, Dave Letterman still has that photo. Lucy and Des smiling for the camera, hiding everything. A reminder that what we see isn't always what's real. And sometimes, the bravest thing you can do is stop smiling and tell the truth, even when it costs you everything, especially when it costs you everything.